Professor Alexander Ternivsky, Deputy Chairman of the Russia Foundation for Basic Research Expert Council on International Calls, to officially open the symposium with a welcoming address. Professor Ternivsky, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear young Zhao. And I really very appreciate to invite you and your colleagues with our colleagues today. And you right mentioned that it's the morning in Moscow and noon in China. And I'm very glad to introduce our team and our groups of Russian scientists who take part in our conference. It's the second day of our conference, and now we start our scientific session. Today we listen to report of the results of outstanding project jointly supported for both our funds, and scientific session are based on knowledge fields. First and second session will be moderated by me, and the rest will be moderated by my colleagues, Mr. Zhu Liao, who is Director General of Bureau of International Cooperation of your funds. Now, probably we start our session. Please, Mr. Zhu Liao.
Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Zhang and for Dr. Ternivsky. Please forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly. Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to the Russian-Chinese Scientific Forum, Russian-Chinese Cooperation in Natural Sciences. On behalf of NSFC, I would like to extend my warmest congratulations on the 25th anniversary of the NSFC RFBR collaboration, as well as my heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished participants joining us on this very special occasion. 25 years ago, NSFC and RFBR embarked on an extraordinary journey of collaboration. More than 20 rounds of joint calls on broad and diverse topics have been successfully launched, leading to excellent scientific findings and significant economic and social impact. The scientific communities have responded to our joint calls with huge enthusiasm. With concerted effort and devotion, we have carried out our programs smoothly and jointly funding more than 880 excellent projects with a total funding of 12.3 million RMB. That's about roughly $2 million. That is from NSFC, and matched funding from RFBR. Through these grants, we have combined Russia and China's research strengths to target challenges faced by both countries and the whole world. Today, we have invited 32 principal investigators or team members, half being Russian and half being Chinese, to the meeting. They will form 16 pairs, each pair presenting one joint report from the fields of physics, life sciences, engineering sciences, information sciences, chemistry, material sciences, and mathematics. We all look forward to hearing from the project leaders and the researchers to share with us the research progress and findings, which I believe would be interesting and inspiring. It has been proven that international collaboration in basic research is playing an increasingly important role in promoting the advancement of knowledge. The RFBR-NSFC collaboration has set a shining example among the major funding agencies of the world. China is now rising as a major contributor to the development of science and technology, while Russia has long been world-leading in science research and innovation. The fact that two sides have strong complementary advantages has been perfectly demonstrated by the previous collaborative programs. I'm sure that hand in hand, we will take our bilateral collaboration to a new stage. Last but not least, I wish today's forum a great success, and thanks so much for your attention. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Zuliao. And after your very warm, very deep report about our meeting and about our cooperation, it's a big pleasure for me to start our scientific program. And I have two critical points. First of all, we kindly respect time limits, because we, as you know, we have about 7-8 minutes per presentation. So if it will be one person, it will be 7-8 minutes. If two, we split for half, 4 and 4 minutes for presentation. Please, for me, it's important to again stress these points for our colleagues. Listen to everyone and respect each other, because time limits. It's one. Second, we have received presentations sent by speakers in order to avoid any technical problems. And that could occur when we would like to run presentation from MISIS, from our side. I hope this is okay for everyone. We use our facility to show all presentation. Okay, and let's start with chapter physics. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dmitry Shtansky, from National University of Science and Technology, MISIS. Please, Dmitry.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for your kind presentation and invitation to be here. And I would like to present our fruitful cooperation between this university, because I am from National University of Science and Technology, MISIS, and Chinese group led by Professor Fang from Fudan University. Next slide, please. I am not going to speak a lot about scientific results, but would like to speak about historical events, how it was possible to establish fruitful cooperation between two groups. And as far back in 1985, I graduated from Moscow State University, and Professor Goldberg, who is scientific advisor of our laboratory, graduated from MISIS alma mater. And 2 years later, we met together in Germany in Max Planck Institute for Steel Research. We worked together for 2 years. Then our ways split again, and we moved to Japan. I worked at Tokyo University and Ehime University, but Professor Goldberg established a very strong scientific group in National Institute of Material Science and Tsukuba. And Professor Fang graduated from Chinese Academy of Science. He joined Professor Goldberg's group in NIMS. And after 5 years of very successful cooperation between Professor Funk and Professor Goldberg, Professor Funk moved to China, established his own scientific laboratory, and later on, cooperation between Funk University and Mrs. University has started. Next slide, please. Several historical slides. This is scientific groups of Professor Goldberg in NIMS. Professor Funk joined this group in 2007, and cooperation between these groups was very successful. 57 very strong publications were prepared and published in Q1 journal. Next slide. Next very important milestone was in 2011 when Professor Goldberg received a mega grant from Russian government for research in organic nanotubes and graphens, and the new lab, research laboratory of inorganic nanomaterials was established here at MISIS, and I became a head of this laboratory. Next slide, please. And then, because we familiar with each other in 2018, we submit application to Russian Foundation for Basic Research and National Science Foundation of China, and our project was successful. And we started our cooperation. You can see very nice photos of our young groups. During the project implementation, one of our team members, Dr. Sorokin, visited Fudan University. He met with Professor Funk. They discussed cooperation, exchange samples, and so on. Next slide. Very briefly about most important results of our project. We developed hybrids nanomaterials based on boron nitride. We prepared aluminum boron nitride photodetectors with extended detection limit due to surface plasmon resonance effect. Our theoretical group, which was involved in this project, performed calculation which showed that among different metals, aluminum is most suitable for such type of nanohybrids, and the detection limit was extended to 266 nanometers for ultraviolet range. Next slide. And other very important result was obtained by Professor Funk group. They developed a novel fabric-like PN junction materials based on nickel oxide and tin oxide. And this device demonstrates very high transparency and very high detectivity. Next slide. During the project implementation, we prepared and published 5 publications, 4 of them in journal of first quarter. All papers were published in high-ranking journals. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide of my presentation, which show new horizons of cooperation between our scientific groups. Last year, we submitted application to Russian Science Foundation, and our application was successful. And this year, new project has started between Russian Science Foundation and the National Science Foundation of China. And already one paper in high-ranking journal was published. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. About question, I think because limit of time, we have not question, and if some colleagues will be interesting, they can write and on the connection between groups, we can organize answer and question of this session today.
Okay, it's understandable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Our next speaker is Zhenjuai Lin from Technical Institute of Physics and Chemistry, Chinese Academy of Science. He represents result of the joint team of scientists from Russia side, led by Viktor Atuchin from Zhdanov Institute of Semiconductor Physics, Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Science, who unfortunately could not attend today. Please, Zhan Lin. Now we see our Russian scientist.
But I don't allow to share the screen, so I don't know.
We are waiting for the screen sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes a few seconds.
Just a second.
Okay.
Ну что, слайды?
The Chinese speaker, we cannot share our screen.
У нас есть их презентации, нету?
Okay. 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 Good afternoon in China and good morning in Russia. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present our NSFC and RFPR cooperation project. So I'm just writing from Chinese Academy of Sciences. And the Russia partner is Professor Viktor Atuchin from Russia Academy of Sciences. So this is the outline of my talk. First, the general information. So actually, this international project was based on the NSFC project, and the Chinese team includes Dr. Xinxin Zhang and me, and we are good at materials design and crystals growth. And the Russia team includes Victor and Dr. Maxim Mulukiv and others. So they are good at structure analysis and characterization. So taking advantage of our strong points, we really applied this international project. So in fact, I knew Victor very well. So we have had a very good cooperation since 2009. So in this international project, we decided to strengthen the exchange of ideas and research cooperations, focusing on the anomalous mechanical properties in oxide crystals. On one hand, to investigate the structure and property relationship, and on the other hand, to search on the related electronic and optical properties. So in the project, we have discovered several oxide crystals with numerous behaviors, and then published 4 SCI papers. So in 2017, we visited Russia to make academic exchange with Russia team. And after that, we attended to conference to present our research results. So here I would like to briefly report representative research. And in this work, we noticed very interesting structure in the Lubin stool structure. The Lubin stool is said to be invited by a very famous Chinese carpenter master Lu Ban in 2,500 years ago. This is a video. Okay. Interesting. This stool is made of a single piece of timber without any nails. So by adjusting the stool legs, its architecture can be longitudinally transferred between the condensed block and an open framework structure. So it can exhibit a simple structure to realize the balance between the forces. So can stop the compression when squeezed and exhibit the zero linear compressibility. So inspiring by this observation, we search for this structure in the inorganic crystal structure database and successfully found this structure in the AEBO compound. So we grown the single crystals and measured its mechanical properties in the high pressure station at the Beijing synchrotron radiation facility. As the high pressure XRD data are very complicated, so the Russia team analyzed the structure evolution and confirmed this structure, this compound exhibited the zero linear compressibility. And moreover, these crystals exhibit a very good transparency down to the deep UV spectral region. So by combining these two interesting properties, we designed the ultra-stable device for the pressure fluctuating environment. So this work was selected as a highlight in Advanced Science News magazine and was selected into the category of major scientific and technological infrastructure achievement of Chinese Academy of Sciences in 2008. So in summary, the exchange of idea and tight cooperation between Chinese and Russian teams indeed boosted the progress of scientific research. And finally, I would like to speak some suggestions. Firstly, I think it should be better to provide more funds to support more participants in the international cooperation project. And the second, to increase the budget in each project to make the international cooperation more effective. So I believe the more extensive and in-depth cooperations will be beneficial to the building of the community of shared future for all mankind. And of course, in the international project, we should concern the issues about the scientific data sharing and the safety. Okay, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Jian Lin, for your deep historical and interesting project. Plus, especially thank you for your suggestion for ideas how to develop our cooperation. Probably we have time to discuss this in the end of our session. And thank you very much again. And our next speaker is Irene Kuznetsova from Kotelnikov Institute of Radio Engineering and Electronics of Russia, Academy of Science, and her collaborator from Nanjing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics, Professor Zhenguan Juan. Ирен, it's you. И да, если вам нужен указка, вот она.
Красный нажимать.
Да, да.
Thank you very much for possibility to discuss our past project between our and Chinese team. Our joint project was devoted, first of all, good morning, and ni hao, sorry. Our joint project was devoted to investigation of acoustic waves propagating in piezoelectric plates with various loading. This task is very important for future development of different biological, chemical, and physical acoustic sensors. Our colleague, Professor Jianhua Guan from Nanjing University of Aeronautic and Astronautic, was the principal investigator of Chinese team. Next slide, please. This is outline of my presentation. Next slide, please. As I told before, such acoustic sensors are widely used now, but still require improvement of their characteristics such as sensitivity, selectivity, threshold, time of response and recovery, and for improvement of such characteristics, it is necessary to proceed fundamental research in field of acoustic wave propagation in various structure. We didn't have joint publication before project submission with Chinese team, but we understood that our topic is very important and interesting, and thanks to Russian and Chinese Foundation who believed in our joint team and give us support. I would like to say that our teams are complementary to each other. Chinese team has great experience in theoretical modeling of acoustic wave propagating in various structure. Russian team has an excellent experience in experimental investigation of such waves. And we also have possibility to use other theoretical models for calculation of acoustic wave in various structures. And we have possibility to compare our results and validate them in experimental work. The tasks solved in our project were development of approach to production hybrid acousto-nanoelectric biological sensor, development of efficient and effective method to calculate spatial dispersion curves in the complex wave number domain, theoretical investigation of the distribution of the acoustic and electric fields of acoustic waves in various multi-layered structure. As the results, next slide, please. As results, I would like to present most interesting. First of all, we found that the changing layer conductivity placed on piezoelectric. Doesn't work. Okay, so this is a piezoelectric plate and conductive layers placed over the two sides of piezoelectric plates, and if we will change the conductivity of layer some way, it is possible to change the distribution of particle displacement over the plate. It could be useful for new type of nanoemitter developed needed for emission electronics. Next slide, please. We suggested a new type of hybrid acousto-nanoelectronic sensor. First time, we placed two interdigital producers which allowed to excite acoustic wave propagating in piezoelectric plate, and we placed between them nanoelectronic structure, and we developed the technology of producing of tunnel micro and nanostructure on piezoelectric substrate. This is not simple task. You see we have possibility to obtain nanowire, and we by measuring current voltage characteristic of such nanowire in presence of acoustic wave in piezoelectric plate, we watch it acousto-electric effect, you can see. And this is one step to develop the new hybrid acousto-nanoelectronic sensor. Next slide, please. it was developed effective method to calculate spatial dispersion curves in the complex wave number domain, and this method will be applied to develop a new software. Next slide, please. And it was also suggested new electrode design for performance improvement of bulk acoustic wave device. And next slide, please. It was investigated the peculiarities of acoustic waves in laterally excited acoustic resonator lighted by viscous liquid. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. That was previous one. Okay. During our cooperation under this project, I visited Nanjing University twice and have given academic reports about acoustic wave device. Professor Kwon visited our institute and discussed with our team about the cooperation details. Next slide, please. In the result of cooperation, next slide, please. We have published 12 joint papers in Han-ranked scientific journal. Next slide, please. Our collaboration is proceeding now. We have received financial support from Russian Science Foundation. Next slide, please. And we are going to, our prospective work lies in two fields: developing new sensor for detecting liquid suspensions characteristic based on acousto-electronic technologies, and exploring new materials, piezoelectric, semiconductor, metamaterial, and its potential application in electronic device. Next slide, please. Thank you for your kind attention. CC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's quite impressive results, especially if you compare short period of cooperation, just few years, because we see that some groups have tens of years cooperation. Thank you very much. And our next presentation, it's from Mikhail Itkis, Joint Institute of Nuclear Research, and Zagua Gan, Institute of Modern Physics, Chinese Academy of Science. Mikhail.
Okay, good morning to everybody. I am thank you, organizer, for invitation to participate in Jubilee meeting of Foundation for Fundamental Investigation Russia and China. And I must say that our cooperation with Institute of Modern Physics of China, Academy of Science of China, has a very old story, around 30 years at least. And mainly, at first time, it was a cooperation in field of accelerator technique, accelerator physics. On the most exciting field, where is my yes. Okay, and I will speak mostly about our cooperation in the very important field of activity, namely the synthesis of super heavy element, search of island of stability of super heavy element. And next slide, please. You can see on this slide the chart of nuclide. And if you look at this picture, you can see that during last 2 decades, starting from 19 years up to now, we synthesize. You can. What's the problem? You listen me? Okay.
We hear you, but unfortunately, we have problem with the slide presentation.
Okay, very nice. I can continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Now it's everything fine.
Okay, on this picture you have a chart of nuclide, and during last 2 decades, 6 new elements have been synthesized starting from 113 up to 118 and 50 new isotope of super heavy element. The main goal, this result justified new phenomena, the more heavy stability super heavy nuclei in accordance with theoretical prediction which was made approximately 50 years ago. More detail our cooperation in framework of our grant concerning the synthesis very neutron-rich isotope of element 114 fluorovium. You can see this element, before was synthesized more heavy, more neutron-rich isotopes, and during our grant we synthesized in reaction plutonium 240, 239 and 240 new two isotope of this super heavy element. It's very important because we don't know this region of nuclei chart, what we must evade in this field of nucleus, and it was very important to study for nearest future, especially for continue our synthesis of super heavy nuclei beyond 118 element, namely agonison, which this name belong to our scientific leader, academician Yuri Aganesian. Next slide, please. On this slide shown some detected event, decay chain of 114 element fluorovium. You can see this decay chain after compound nucleus fluorovium, after alpha emission, become to Copernicus, to Darmstadtium, to Hassium, to Seaborgium, and to Rutherfordium. All decay chain, and if you look at the last decay chain, the approximately the time of decay around 100 seconds. It means that in comparison with previous data for more lighter nuclei like nobelium, Rutherfordium, the time of flight of this nuclei only millisecond. It means that in few order of magnitude stability of neutron-rich nuclei much more higher and in accordance with theoretical prediction, which, as I mentioned, made more than 50 years ago. The next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the result of cooperation for all isotope of plutonium in reaction plutonium plus calcium 48. You can see plutonium 244 plus calcium is the cross section on excitation energy. Значит, we detected many events and defined the cross section for this reaction: plutonium 44, plutonium 242, plutonium 240, and plutonium 235. And the result of the total cross section for different isotope of fluorovium shown on this slide on right side. You can see that the cross section very quickly fall down. It means that in future for synthesis of neutron deficient more heavy super heavy nuclei, we must understand very well that we must move only to neutron rich nuclei, not to its very important result, because in other case we haven't success in synthesis of super heavy element. And here shown also the calculations, theoretical calculation, our theoretician Zagrebayev and Lon Zhu from China for plutonium, and in more or less in a good agreement. Next slide, please. Here shown new facility which commissioned at Florov laboratory during last 2 years. you can see a new building, you can see new absolutely accelerator, which has the highest intensity of ions for experiment in this very exciting field of activity around the world. It's the highest intensity. We have up to 10 particle micro particles per second. It will that we can increase our possibility approximately in 50 or 100 times in order synthesis new elements beyond of 118. It's a very important facility. It's very nice. This during the last few months we synthesized for fluorobium element, which I mentioned only. During 1 month, 100 decay chain, 100 new atoms. It's amount corresponding all decay chains for all synthesized element, super heavy element around the world in Berkeley, in Darmstadt, at Riken, and Dubna during previous 20 years. Now, during 1 month, we have a very nice result, and it's very base for future cooperation with Institute of Modern Physics in Lanzhou and for our good friend in China. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. Now we know that we're in the right way to develop new heavy isotope, which will be useful not only for fundamental, but also application in industry. Thank you very much again. And now we more or less on the end of our physical section, and the last speaker in this section, Viktor Ralchenko from Prokhorov General Physics Institute of Russian Academy of Science. And he worked jointly with Professor Bengdai from Harbin Institute of Technology, who could not
sorry, but my colleagues
we come back and we have...
Yes, 3 minutes for my colleague from Lanzhou.
And we understand that you use 10 minutes because it's really... No problem, because it's too heavy isotope and you need more time than usually. But now our next speaker, your colleagues from China, Zhang Gan, please, your turn now.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Zai Guogang from Institute of Modern Physics. The articles have reported some results, and I will report another. This between us, we have a good relationship because I don't say some. This picture I will not say. This is the program or between us. After in this program, we get some results. Yeah, we get 2 new isotopes in this. The results we observe the proton drop line is the highest one. Yeah. And also we observed the asthma, also this one. Yeah. Also it's very, very different from others. In the future, I think the EDC have say something here, because he have the C factory and they also have a new gas field separate. Also in our institute, we have a new one. Or maybe in the near future, we will have another accelerator. Maybe in the future, there's a new collaboration between the new element synthesis. Okay, for like for the one line, something like this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now it's clear that you have really good plan for future, and you have very good, not only scientific, but also industrial basis for this. We saw a very good facility, not only in Moscow, but also in China. And we wish you good results and good cooperation. And now, please, our next speaker, Viktor Ralchenko from Prokhorov General Physics Institute of Russian Academy of Science, and he worked jointly with Professor Bing Dai from Harbin Institute of Technology. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for introduction. And let me make a joint presentation of our project devoted to growth of single crystal diamonds in new regimes by chemical vapor deposition technique. Next slide, please. So the project finished just last year, and our partner is Professor Bin Dain from Harbin Institute of Technology, one of oldest universities in China, with a long story and Russian connections. Please, next slide. So, because diamond possesses a unique combination of physical, mechanical, electronic properties, it becomes more and more popular and demanded material for last decade. And among applications, I can tell about electronic devices, because of very high, record high thermal conductivity of diamond and high velocity of charge carriers. Also, quantum technologies is attractive because a number of color centers stable at room temperature exist in diamond, like silicon vacancy defect or nitrogen vacancy center. Also, diamond is radiation-hard material, can withstand very high doses of neutrons, high-energy particles, X-rays. Also, optical components and lasers, Raman laser, for example, and of course, jewelry, other applications. Next slide, please. So, just let me remind the principle of chemical vapor deposition. We have a vacuum chamber. We introduce two gases, only two, hydrogen and methane. Methane is carbon carrier. And diamond is deposited in such conditions on hot substrate. Hot means about 1,000 degrees C. Next slide, please. And hydrogen is needed to continuously clean the surface of the deposit, removing graphite. Next slide, please. So we have a microwave plasma assisted CVD system, RDIS, developed by Russian company Optosystems in Troitsk. It operates at frequency 2.45 gigahertz. We have optical diagnostics, and you can see the plasma ignited above the hot substrate. Substrate is single crystal diamond. And we have a unique unique diagnostics for measuring growth rates and thickness of the deposit in situ. Next slide. So just one principal result of the project is the successful attempt to go to high pressures of the discharge. Before, the limit was 400 torr, established by American group with Professor Muller. And we succeeded to go to 600 torrs, and you see photographs of plasma, how it changes, shrinks with the pressure. So we work with very high density plasma, and it allows to increase the growth rate almost twice to about 60 microns per hour. And the crystal quality is good according to Raman spectroscopy, XRD, luminescence. Next slide, please. So we published together 5 papers, mostly in Q1 journals. Next slide, please. And just two slides from Harbin group. They use another type of plasma systems, French CVD reactor from Placis company. So interesting way to increase the size of single crystals is growth of mosaic crystals. When 2 substrates put close together, and the deposit becomes a single crystal diamond with twice size. And we examined thoroughly the structure of interface and found its thickness not more than 2 microns. So in fact, the material is very good single crystal. Next slide. And another interesting result from HIT group, that they realized the idea of injection periodically of methane inside the chamber, and monitor how many carbon in each moment they have in the chamber, and the carbon concentration decreases with time, then they inject next time. So the economy, the gas, it is very important when people use very expensive gases such as isotopically purified methane. So the economy is about 25 times they measured. So very original approach. Next slide. And finally, I want to say that personal links and exchanges with visits help very much to success of the project, and particularly a PhD student, Shu Guo-Yang from HIT, visited us and stayed with us about one year. So he is very bright student, learn very good Russian language and even Russian songs. You see his photographs from the right side. So these exchanges helped us to understand the specific approach to research in both countries, to understand history and the spirit of people, mentality, and both sides want to continue the collaboration in future, formal or informal. And of course, we thank the national funds from 2 countries for support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very impressive presentation plus very interesting materials. And I hope that academician Prokhorov will be glad to hear your presentation, that his idea on the right way if we speak about laser and use a new material for laser technology. Thank you very much again. Now we move to the section of that was second section, and it's a section about life science. And our first speaker is Olga Shebistova from Federal Research Center Krasnoyarsky Scientific Center of the Siberian branch of Russian Academy of Science, and Tida Ge from Institute of Subtropical Agriculture of China Academy of Science. And where is Olga?
Olga is here.
Please, it's your time.
Yeah. Then I'm waiting for my presentation.
And
Could I have, okay, thanks. Okay, ni hao, доброе утро, good morning. I would like to present our joint research on the soils. We met each other a few years ago with Professor Tida Ge, and actually came together because we are both interested in the functioning of the soils. Next slide, please. Yeah. This is hard to overestimate the role of the soils in our environment. First of all, for sure, it's a basis of the life and strong bioeconomics, but the second and not less important role of the soils, they are the modulator of the climate in the earth. Just imagine that soils globally together store more carbon than atmosphere and plants together, almost twice. And for sure, the attention of this scientific society is focused on the soils, but we came to the idea that it's not known so much about anaerobic soils. And both countries, China and Russia, having these anaerobic hydromorphic soils. These are permafrost and paddy soils in China. With this, we aim to understand the processes and mechanisms of the cycling of carbon and its sequestration in hydromorphic soils. Please, next slide. Yeah, and combining our experience and methodological skills, we joined some methods which we could apply to reach our goals. We came from the basic pedological analysis, field description, and lab analysis to the soil, to the stable isotope labeling technique, combined with molecular methods by using biomarkers or metagenomics. And finally, to have a look what's going on the nanoscale, we applied also microfluid chip technique combined with XPS. The next slide, please. Yeah, so first we had a look at the importance of the permafrost soils globally and for Russia particularly. You know that they store a huge amount of carbon, which, strictly speaking, is the time bomb. With the climate change, it could be emitted to the atmosphere. And Russia has about 60% and more of the permafrost soils, which are, as I said, hydromorphic and could be comparable, despite of the different climatic conditions, to the paddy soils in China. Please, next slide. So we had a look at the classical mechanisms of the carbon storage in permafrost soils, as well as the microbial transformation processes of the carbon. And actually, it's clear that there is selective preservation of lignin in the anaerobic conditions, which could be seen from the distribution of the residues of lignin within soil horizons. And it doesn't mean that microbes are lazy. They are just living in the hard conditions. The next slide, please. we had to look at the microbial imprint in the carbon decomposition, and we could see with the distribution of the stable carbon isotopes that with the depths, with the more anaerobic conditions, microbes have the more clear imprint in the carbon stabilization. And the same has been shown by the ratio of the microbial and plant-derived sugars. So it means that in the permafrost soils, microbial recycling is one of the major mechanisms of the carbon sequestration in the soils. Next slide, please. Is it comparable with the totally different soils of paddy rice, which are in the warm conditions and which are actually managed? Paddy soils also represent the huge area of the soils under the temporal flooding. So also here, the driving factor might be the changing of the redox potential. At the same time, paddy soils and carbon storage in them are pretty high, and they could be managed by the fertilization and with conventional tillage. China is also one of the major players in the carbon storage in the paddy soils. So emphasizing the importance of the paddy soils globally and China itself. Next slide, please. So we had a look closely at the processes of carbon cycling and sequestration in paddy soils and the different contents of the easily available carbon. And we found that there is a cascade of processes which reveals the role of different functional groups of microbes in the processes of carbon transformation and sequestration. With this, we developed the conventional model of the carbon sequestration in the microbial processes in the paddy soils. And we emphasized the interlinkage in between, or some similarity in between permafrost soils and paddy soils. Not to be too modest, I have to say that this paper, which was published last year, became the highly cited and so-called hot paper. Next slide, please. So what is our joint success? First of all, scientific success. We identified mechanisms which are responsible for the large soil organic carbon storage in permafrost and paddy soils, being hydromorphic and also subjected to the changing of the moisture conditions. And the second, we developed the new technology to have a look at the microbial processes of carbon transformation on the nanoscale. Moreover, we have a strategic success. So we deepened the scientific collaboration between both countries and increased the publication record. And I would also say that we have a humanistic success, because we got a really good friendship in between two institutions and two teams. And I'm always personally impressed by the atmosphere and the spirit of group of Professor Tidake, when everyone is extremely dedicated and enthusiastic in the scientific achievements. Next slide, please. So what is our cooperation network? Well, first of all, as I said, that we published not so less amount of papers, and we got some joint projects, and we found a lot of Russian and Chinese partners, which let us think about further development. Next slide, please. So, what would we suggest? We think that our collaboration is strong enough to establish a Russian-Chinese Center of Excellence and carry out joint research to improve our knowledge of such a valuable bioresource as a soils with respect to their functioning, management, and sustainability. Finally, to mitigate the climate change feedback, and the second, to come to the security of the countries. And with this, we hope that we will be able to establish a strong, innovative Russian-Chinese School of Soil Science. Thank you so much, Cecia, and many thanks to the both foundations that they let us to carry out joint research.
Olga, thank you very much. We're really very glad to hear the situation with the soil not so bad in our countries. And now we move to the medical field. I will be glad to introduce my friend Andrei Zamyatin, who is a professor in the first section of Moscow State Medical University, and his colleague Van Hai Hu, who is from Harbin Medical University.
Hai Shu.
Please, thank you very much. Andrei, and please, because time.
Yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to start that's a great honor for me to present our joint work with Professor Shu today here. And could you please start the presentation? So next slide, please. So, and I would like to start from the mentioning one more very important, from my point of view, event, which held up in 2014. And that was the establishment of Association of Senior Russian Medical Universities, initiated by President of Harbin Medical University, Professor Yan Baifeng, and Rector of Sechenov University, Piotr Glybочka. So this association became a great platform for communication of, in particular, researchers from Russia and China in the biomedical field. And in 2014, I was very happy also to visit Harbin, where we met our partners from Harbin Medical University and started to discuss possible collaboration projects. And therefore, we're very grateful to our rector. So next slide, please. So, in particular, with Professor Shu, we have started to discuss possible projects. From this slide, it seems that the problem of kidney cancer, from the last diagrammed, it seems that that is not so, maybe even I could say interesting, at least according to my experience of communication with pharmaceutical companies. They're suggesting to put our focus on something like kidney cancer or colorectal cancer, but from the right histogram, it is possible to see that renal cancer in general is very, very classic, I could say, cancer, and the success of the treatment is dependent on the stage when it was discovered for the first time. So that is a really, really great problem. Next slide, please. So in this case, to try to find out, the basics for the development of diagnostic systems, maybe for treatment, and surely for the studies of molecular pathways. We have selected pigment epithelium-derived factor, for which it have been shown many anti-tumor activities for other cancers. And Chinese group was focused on the studies of this factor, while Russian group was studied on the group of so-called cancer retina antigens. So these proteins in normal conditions are expressed in retina only, but it has been shown for many tumors that they are starting, they start aberrantly express in different tumors. However, the function of these proteins is still unknown. So the next slide, please. So during our work, we have shown that PDF is downregulated by microRNA 93.3P in renal cell carcinoma, and its downregulation correlates with poor prognosis. I will follow to the conclusions of this part of the work, so that it's possible to make a conclusion that surely, first of all, this downregulation could be detected, as well as upregulation of microRNA, and in principle, it could be a perspective molecular marker for personalized, predictive, preventive, and personalized medicine, so PPPM. On the other hand, downregulation of microRNA could be a basement of novel therapeutic approaches which could be developed, and as far as I know, we're working on this. Well, on the other hand, if we're talking about cancer retina antigens, so it has been shown that Recoverin, as well as the other one, Aristin, are aberrantly expressed in renal cell carcinoma. Moreover, what is very interesting, that is possible to detect autoantibodies against Aristin. So Aristin is the protein from the other side of blood retinal barrier, and therefore unknown for immune system. And in more than 50% of patients we have tested that it's possible to detect Aristin within sera, and also it could be one more marker. Due to the fact that cancer retina antigens, they are unknown for the immune system, surely it's also a nice idea to try to develop.
Andrei, I'm sorry, because you have second person in your presentation. No?
Okay. I'm finishing. So their epitopes were prospective targets for the development of anti-cancer vaccines. So you can see joint publications published during the project. So next slide. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. And now your colleagues, Wang Han Shu, please.
Good afternoon, leaders and experts, and Dobrutla for Ruski professors. I am thanks for the sharing from our Russian partners. I'm from the 4th hospital of the Harbin Medical University. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Professor Xu Wanhai. And Professor Xu is the president of our hospital and also the director of the NHC Key Laboratory. And next, I will briefly introduce the Sino-Russian cooperation and communication in the urology area of our hospital. And when it comes to the Sino-Russian cooperation, we actually have some geological advantages. In 2024, in 2014, and with the efforts of the academician Yang Baofeng and the rector Glebochika, the Association of the Sino-Russian Medical University has been established. And this marked the further cooperation and communication. Since 2015, and the Sino-Russian Urology Conference was successfully held in Harbin for 4 times. Even the COVID-19 breakout cannot block the close contact because all the conferences were held online instead. And in turn, Professor Xu went to Russia personally almost every year before the 2020 to attend the International Urology Conference. And on June 2018, Professor Xu successfully performed a surgical demonstration in Bashkir Medical University in Ufa. And next is a scientific achievement. Combining the characteristic displacencies of the both sides, we are committed to solving the bottleneck problems in urological cancer. Firstly, to visualize the macrobladder tumor, we and our Russian partners developed a peptide-based and self-assembled molecular probes. With the guidance of the probes, we can achieve the earlier diagnosis of the tumor. And with the cooperating with the first Moscow State Medical University, we also focus on clarifying the molecular mechanisms. And some researchers shed light on the key role of some important genes like PEDF, as we mentioned before, and the RUNX2 and ERG on the tumorigenesis and the progress of the urological cancer. And finally, I want to appreciate the support of the National and Natural and Science Foundation of China, and also the support of our cooperative supporters. And so we believe we could do it better in the future. And put it finally, beyond the cooperative partners, we are also the best of friends. Thank you. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Really very impressive publication, clinical results with bladder, prostate, and colon cancer. Thank you very much again. And we now move to the glioma. And I will be glad to introduce Olga Cherkasova from Federal Scientific Research Center, Crystallography and Protonics of Russian Academy of Science, and partners from China, Yan Peng, University of Shanghai for Science and Technology. Olga?
Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank for inviting us to this Jubilee Science Forum. Our joint project began to the end of 29, and now we are already halfway. Next slide, please. Glioma form the most common type of primary brain tumors and is among the most deadly neoplasms. One reason for the poor outcome of glioma may be related to diagnosis and treatment. However, knowledge about the early stage is limited. Glioma biomarkers are found in brain tissue and body fluids. The quantitative analysis of markers allows differentiation the degree of malignancy on early stage. However, the traditional metabolomics techniques have not been able to study the evolution pathway of biomarkers due to long testing time and costliness. So we use a novel approach based on the application of more technological and easy spectroscopic methods in combination with sensors based on mass material to enhance the sensitivity of the detection of the molecular markers of glioma in brain tissue and to blood of patient. Next slide, please. During the past 2 decades, Trager's technology has been rapidly developed. Glioma molecular markers have unique Trager's resonance, which proves the feasibility of using Trager's spectroscopy in diagnosis of gliomas. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is, вернитесь, пожалуйста. Thank you. This is our project roadmap, aiming at the problem that the existing medical science cannot quickly and accurately identify the early diagnosis of brain glioma. This project proposes using the information obtained in Trager's, infrared, and Raman spectroscopy, combining with mass materials to enhance the detection sensitivity of markers and combining with machine learning to improve the recognition readiness to construct various indicators for early diagnosis of multi-directional brain glioma and to establish a diagnostic model of early brain glioma and effectively realize the transition from basic research to the practical application. Next slide, please. This is our result. We use the model of human glioma, U87. The dynamics of the tumor growth were studied by means of magnetic resonance imaging through 1 to 4 weeks after inoculation of tumor cells. And then we use magnetic resonance spectroscopy to study metabolites in the brain in vivo. And we use the machine learning technology, makes it possible to build a predictive model of metabolite changes in the dynamics of glioma development. Next slide, please. You can see Raman spectroscopy of mouse blood plasma in dynamics of glioma development. Selected important frequencies are primarily markers for groups differentiation. And so the possibility of Raman spectroscopy of blood plasma and machine learning technologies in the diagnosis of glioma biomarkers is demonstrated. And in conclusion of my part, we identify the main molecular markers in the brain and blood in the dynamics of glioma development using spectroscopic methods and machine learning. And now we are studying of mass material sensors obtained from our collaborators from China. And thank you for attention. And the next part of our report will be presented by Professor Yang. Please.
Thank you, Olga. Next slide, please. Next page, please. Next, I will introduce our work in China. We began our investigation on brain glioma since 2017. At that time, we and our cooperated doctors found that the accumulation of 2-HG is one of the important markers of the appearance of glioma. So 2-HG can be used as an important biomarker. However, 2-HG has a pair of isomers, L2-HG and D2-HG, which are difficult to be distinguished by common chemical methods. Therefore, we try to use terahertz spectroscopy for analysis. Firstly, the vibration and the rotation of molecules are simulated by Gauss software. The molecular structures are shown in Fig A1 and B1. The simulated terahertz spectra are shown in Fig A2 and B2. We can see that they all have 4 characteristic peaks, but the 2 peaks in the middle are different. So these theoretical differences tells us terahertz spectrum can be used to distinguish the isomers of 2-HG. Next slide, please. Then we did experiments with rats and human tissues, and the results show that terahertz method could obtain higher amplitude and gradient signal than GCMS and ELISA, and it was more sensitive to low concentration of biomarkers. Next slide, please. The method of machine learning is used for quantitative calculation. The results showed that the correlation coefficients of quantitative identification of two key glioma substances were above 99%. Next slide, please. During this process, we found that the concentration of biomarkers is usually very low. The conventional terahertz method can only reach the detection limits of milligram level. For the immune method, it is unlabeled, which is not conductive to the second measurement. Therefore, we need a new solution which not only achieve low concentration, label-free detection, but also fast and accurate. In this project, next slide. In this project, next page, please. In this project, we propose to design a sensitive metamaterial biosensor. In conventional terahertz detection, the amount of sample should be the milligram to ensure the identification of terahertz absorption peak. Using metamaterial biosensor, targets, biosensor, and terahertz wave will resonate with each other, which can improve the detection sensitivity. Next page, please. We firstly designed a simple metamaterial biosensor to detect the DNA methylation caused by cancer. The sensor is designed in the range of 1.25 to 1.49 terahertz. The right figure shows experimental test result. We can see that the detection limit of sample dosage is reduced to microgram, which is about 1,000 times less than the traditional method. Secondly, the qualitative and quantitative identification of DNA methylation was realized by the different relationship between the frequency shift of biosensor and the quality of the sample on the surface of biosensor. Based on this different relationship, we can also identify the DNA methylation in the mixture. This is the first time that a terahertz biosensor recognized the mixture. Next page, please. In addition, we also found that the polarization of terahertz light will affect the stability of biosensor signal. Therefore, we designed a novel non-polarized metamaterial biosensor. Next, in its structure is shown in Figure B. The next page? No. The 11th page. Sorry. Its structure is shown in Figure. Sorry. Next.
王老师，我们可能要稍快点，不能太细了，好吧？不好意思。
Next. Okay. Its structure is shown in Figure B. We can see that the new structure is completely independent of the polarization of terahertz light. So it provides good signal-to-noise ratio and accuracy for future measurement. Next page, please. Then we use this polarization-independent biosensor to detect pure markers and also the real tissues. We can see that the error is between 4% and 13%, which needs to be reduced. Because of time, I won't go into details. We have analyzed the possible reasons and will make improvements in the future. Next page, please. Next page. Now our project has published 8 articles jointly. Later in the project, we will further optimize our biosensor and control methods. The final goal is to achieve non-destructive, accurate, and rapid detection of early brain glioma. Now my report ends here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really very impressive results and very, very good and highest level of team spirit in your international team. Thank you very much again. And our last presentation before coffee break from group running Yuri Orlov, Institute of Cytology and Genetics, Siberian branch of Russian Academy of Science, and Ming Chen from Hangzhou Zhejiang University. Please, Professor Ming Chen, please.
Okay, thank you. So we are, yes, I think the time is far behind the schedule. So I will go quickly through our report. So our report will be presented by me and Yuri Orlov. So the collaboration, sorry, I cannot share my slide. Please, yes, use my slide. Stop yours. Okay, thank you. So the collaboration is between Zhejiang University in Hangzhou and Ozana and Yuli from Novosibirsk State University and Institute of Cytology and Genetics in Siberia branch, Russian Academy of Science. Zhejiang University is one of the most comprehensive universities in China. And Novosibirsk State University is the largest university in Russia. And of course, this ICG institute is the earliest institute in Siberia. So the collaborator met early time in Russia, in Germany. So Bielefeld and Gotteslieb IPK. And we also attend several meetings in Germany. Started from 2006 and before the grant, I visited Novosibirsk and Moscow several times, and the Russia partners visited China 3 times. And we also organized several meetings before the grant. And this picture shows we enjoyed the West Lake in Hangzhou. And this Ober River, Ober Sea, my point is it looks like sea in Novosibirsk. And we are involved in two collaboration project. And this is between Novosibirsk State University and Inner Mongolia University for the Nationalities. Professor Bai, she is working on Mongolia genetics. And yes, Ozana and Yuli visited my lab, and Yuli visited Tongliao and give lectures, and we organize also a small workshop there. And before this grant, yes, we also met in Novosibirsk in 2015, and the team member Elena later visited my lab. And this new grant focus on this crop plant genomics and evolution study. So we have integrated related omics data and completed the pipeline to predict natural antisense transcripts and annotated long non-coding RNAs in plants. Various RNA mediated regulatory network were constructed, and we also built some biological database and also bioinformatics pipeline. And so far, we, in the last decade, we had many joint activities, organized and participated conference meetings and visited each other. And in 2017, I'm honored to be invited to be as a guest professor, working fully 1 month in Novosibirsk State University and giving lectures, meeting other many other colleagues and also enjoy Russian food. And this is showing the announcement of my talk. I can only recognize my name in Russia here. Yeah, so far we have achieved a number of joint publications. And of course, I also, yes, we joint co-edited special issues for some journals. And we will, of course, we will keep working together in the future. So next slides will be presented by my Russia partner, Yuri Orlov. Please, Yuri.
Yes, thank you, Min. So you already explained about our collaboration. And here we can see, sorry, I cannot turn my video, I just show slides. Continue with presentation. Here's our next meeting in Novosibirsk. So after grant, so we continue our collaboration, and we have a series of the conference on bioinformatics of genome regulation and structure every 2 years. And Professor Chen and his group already visited our conference several times till last year. So please, next slide. So here you can see meetings at Novosibirsk and Nidmo University on bioinformatics organized by Professor Chen and Zhejiang Society on Bioinformatics recently. So we continue our activity, and so of course we should thank the organization, National Science Foundation of China and Russian Foundation for Basic Research. So unfortunately last year, so we cannot meet live, and we had online meeting. It was a Sino-Russian workshop on bioinformatics quite recently at the end of last year. So you can see our colleagues, also participants of these grants. So we continue our joint research. So next slide. And we organized a virtual network on computational system biology based on our cooperation, Zhejiang University, Novosibirsk State University, and now some other institutes in Moscow. So next slide, I think it's last one. So here I think most interesting maybe way, so like Silk Road from China to Europe. So here is the way, the Trans-Siberian Railway from Beijing to Moscow via Novosibirsk, and actually we move at every part. And also our group, Dr. Dobrovolskaya and me, already moved to Moscow, and now I'm presenting another organization, Agrarian Technological University and People's Friendship University of Russia, and a session of First Moscow State University on medical research. So we presented before, so we have some medical research and collaboration in this area. So, and of course, we are looking for new projects, open for collaboration. So thanks again for starting point of our work. Oh, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And now, because we're a little bit out of our time schedule, maybe we have coffee break let's say 7 minutes, and start our new session.
Yes, may I suggest that we could start our next session exactly at 14:15 Beijing time, which means
Super.
that we'll,
Super.
yes, after
Yeah.
5 minutes. Okay,
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, see you.
Thank you.
already far behind the schedule. I really appreciate if the speakers can finish the presentations within a limited time. Thank you very much. Now let's continue to move on the third session in the field of engineering science and info communication sciences. Let's welcome the first presenters, Professor Zaltykov Alexei, and Professor Li Yanfeng. Please.
Yes, I guess we need some moments for the audience to show up here in on the Russian side. Other than that, we are of course ready to go. All right, so maybe I can start. First of all, this is a great honor to be here, and I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting us to give this talk here. And I'm a speaker for a collaboration between Moscow State University and Tianjin University, and it's a long-standing collaboration. We had a series of successful grant applications within this joint call of the Russian Foundation for Basic Research and the National Science Foundation of China. We've been working for a number of years, and as I said, different members of our team and also of this team in Tianjin University had enjoyed the continuing support of those funding agencies. So at this time, let me congratulate both agencies on this wonderful anniversary, 25th anniversary of their collaboration. And at a certain point in my life, I spent some time at the Russian Foundation for Basic Research, and let me tell you, this was a very fruitful, very interesting time, very memorable time. And from that time, I had all the sense how much effort it takes to promote a program like this, how much work it takes, and I appreciate the leadership of this program in the first place, and of course the chairman of the Russian Foundation for Basic Research, academician Panchenko, someone who spends a lot of his time and invests a lot of his time and his effort and his heart and his soul into all those initiatives. I've seen this and I know this all from the first hands. So as far as the science is concerned, right? So it's Moscow and Tianjin, two universities, one in Moscow, one in Russia, and we've been collaborating for many years. So it's 25 years anniversary of the cooperation between the Russian Foundation for Basic Research and National Science Foundation of China. And I think we were supported most of this time, not necessarily me, but some other members of our team at Moscow State University and in Tianjin University also. They had different principal investigators on this program. So the technologies that we are developing here at Moscow State University and also at the International Center for Quantum Technologies in Skolkovo is based on mid-infrared laser sources. It's ultra-short sources that can generate ultra-short pulses at the mid-infrared. So you've heard some wonderful talks about how useful the terahertz radiation is. So mid-infrared range is somewhere close to this terahertz range, right? So it's close to the terahertz, but better. Right? Why better? Because using this source, I mean, not of course the entire range is better because the ranges don't really care, but this source that works in the mid-infrared range is a source of broadband radiation from X-rays to terahertz and even shorter wavelengths, such as microwave radiation and even shorter wavelengths. And we've demonstrated this experimentally with the help of certain technologies that we've been developing. The fundamental aspects of those technologies have been developed under this collaboration. So we developed this source, and this source is unique in many ways to make this very long story. And we've been building this technology for more than 10 years now. So why it is unique? Because the energy is high, because the radiation wavelength is so unique, and because the pulses are so short, giving us the highest peak power in the mid-infrared for femtosecond pulses, right? So this is a world-breaking output in the mid-infrared. And now what we've been developing as a part of this fruitful collaboration with Tianjin University, with Liang Fan, with Minglia Hu, and with the founder of that School of Ultra-Fast Optics at Tianjin University, Professor Wang Qingyu, who is retired now, we developed several methods of how to make those pulses even shorter and even more powerful, right? This is what we've been doing together. So the technique, this is the laser. Now it's a part of our joint laboratory of Moscow State University and Russian Quantum Center. And some heroes of this work shown here, Sasha Mitrofanov, who spent some time in Vienna getting his PhD, and then he decided he wants to come back and work with us, and we're certainly happy with that. Now, this part that we are doing together with our partners at Tianjin University is based, we are working with this pulse compression, so we have all this, we have this mid-infrared laser, and we are coupling it into this capillary waveguide. And this capillary waveguide is not just a simple capillary, but it has this complex structure within the fiber. And this is something that we've been developing for many years. This is another long story, which I'm making short here for you. And the result is that we've been able to come up with this design that helps support mid-infrared wavelengths, which is a big problem to solve in fiber optics in its own right? To have a fiber for mid-infrared laser radiation. And it has an extremely broad bandwidth, so it can support ultra-short pulses. And it can be designed in such a way as to make those pulses even shorter. How? Right? So this is, again, how our experiment looks like. So you see this capillary, this metal tubing, and the entire, this interesting structure goes inside this metal tubing. And now again, this soliton dynamics, right? We call it soliton compression to sub-cycle pulse widths, meaning that, right, we have the electromagnetic field, light pulses are oscillations of electromagnetic fields, right? Now we are making our pulses shorter, nominally shorter than one oscillation of this field, right? And this allows us to convert this source into something really very powerful, And then it can radiate, it can produce secondary radiation after that in the broad range from X-rays to terahertz and even in the microwaves, as now we realize and we are now proving experimentally in the lab. And it is all the result of this interesting dynamics, soliton dynamics, involving all those, the whole catalog of nonlinear optics. So you open a book on nonlinear optics, you tell me the process, and I will tell you that we are observing this process in our fiber as a part of this physical scenario of short pulse generation. So this is the story, and this is the result. We have those pulses, a half field cycle. More or less, this is half field cycle. It's, of course, it's not every day that we're getting this half cycle pulses out of our laser, but we're close to that in our everyday routine. This is a result, and this is a result of this joint work over many years. Now, if we are thinking about a bigger picture landscape of the entire story, then you might like to think about this in terms of this landscape, right? The intensity, vertical axis, the y-axis, and the x-axis is the wavelength. So this is a cultural landscape. And if you think, for example, about how strong your laser field is, you might like to think about this A0 parameter, which is the velocity of the electron. Electrons are charged particles, they have small mass, so they will be the first ones to respond to electromagnetic radiation, right? If you shine your light on any material, laser-matter interaction, taken as fundamentally, as general as possible, the first thing that happens is that the electrons respond to electromagnetic field, right? Because they are charged and because the mass is small. So they start responding, and then the field drives them, and they move with certain velocity. And then this velocity over the speed of light is this A0. And as we increase this lambda, this wavelength, this A0 goes down. This means that with longer wavelengths, you can do your relativistic experiments with a tabletop laser source or lab scale laser source instead of big accelerators, big facilities, right in your lab. And this is what will be the next thing to do with this laser. And this is where we are already at this point, and we observe certain signatures of relativistic nonlinear optics in our work. Right, so this is where we are at the moment, mid-infrared lasers. We are launching optical physics into new orbit, and it's not just a figure of speech, it's new nonlinear optical regimes, something that makes us think that the books on nonlinear optics should be rewritten, at least in some of those chapters, or at least some chapters have been lost. Transmission ranges and dispersion anomalies in the atmosphere, we're working there. Attosecond electron dynamics, petahertz optoelectronics, right? So this is the way to design materials for ultra-fast optoelectronics. Ultra-broadband, cross-range, multi-decade nonlinear optics, right? This is the new field of ultra-fast optics, and we are on the eve of relativistic physics. Thank you very much.
Very much for your excellent presentations. Now let's move on the second presentation. To welcome Professor Rumiansva Marina and Professor Li Xiao Gan.
Thanks, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, Moscow. My name is Xiaogan Li. I'm from Dalian University of Technology, China. My collaborator is Dr. Rumiansva from Moscow State University, Russia. I would much like to thank NSFC and RFBR for giving us this opportunity to talk about research on advanced chemical gas sensors from material synthesis and to its mechanism. First, I would like to introduce a brief background on semiconductor type gas sensors. This technology has been evolved from the traditional tubular one to the current silicon-based MEMS integrated one. The aim is to reduce the size and the power consumption of these sensors for potential application in the mobile phones and robotics for harmful gas detection and also for the human health diagnosis. However, as noticed, the operating temperature of the sensor is still at 300 degrees Celsius, which is very high for the silicon-based sensors. So we have to further reduce the operating temperatures. Our question is how to make this miniaturized sensor operate at an even lower temperature. We jointly have explored two strategies. The first one is to operate the sensor with the new activation method. The second one is to search for new sensing materials. Funded by the NSFC and RFBR cooperation program, our two teams from DUT and a team from MSU have jointly conducted on this topic. We have several research exchange and visit in the last couple of years. The team from DUT, we have a good advantage in the exploring the new sensing materials and the new device design and fabrication. The team led by Professor Jaskov and Professor Ramyantsova, they are expert in the material synthesis and characterization, and especially expertise in the in situ study for the fundamentals on gas sensing mechanism. You know here Professor Jaskov has left us during the cooperation this January. It's a big loss for us. He is such nice kind of people and very helpful. What we have achieved so far, we have investigated the two-dimensional nanostructures and its heterojunction for the ammonia detection. We propose for first time that the acid centers of sulfide formed on surface be responsible for the enhanced gas tension. And we also propose that the two-dimensional tungsten sulfide nanoflakes, which incorporated in the RGO, could facilitate the response and recovery speeds of the RGO-based gases for the room temperature ammonia detection. The mechanism involves the charge transfer between this interface. We also studied the light activity gas sensing. We creatively designed the prototype shows the time-powered LED activity tungsten sulfide sensors which can work at room temperature. We also studied the light activity, the neural interface of the noble metal with the tin sulfide for the enhanced low temperature nitrogen dioxide sensors. My collaborator, Dr. Ramyantsova, is one of the pioneers in this research work. I would like to pass my talk to Dr. Ramyantsova. Please.
Thank you. I will continue. And Xiaogan, could you make the next slide? Or next slide, please, from the same presentation. Slide number 6, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So I will continue, and I would like to tell you about something about the work that was concentrated on the materials for gas sensors working under visible light activation. Our interest into this topic is because the most intensive part of the solar spectrum that we have on the ground surface corresponds to the visible light range. But semiconductor oxides, which are typically practically used for gas sensor applications, are transparent in this region. So to activate them under visible light, it is necessary to add some photosensitizers, which can be organic dyes or semiconductor quantum dots. Semiconductor quantum dots are nanocrystals with a diameter of several nanometers, and their optical properties are strongly dependent on their size. So we synthesized the nanocomposite containing wide gap semiconductor oxides like zinc oxide, tin oxide, indium oxide, and semiconductor quantum dots like cadmium selenide, indium phosphide, and also core shell heterostructures made from cadmium sulfide, cadmium selenide, and zinc selenide, cadmium sulfide. Such design of materials allows us to change significantly not only the absorption spectrum of the materials, but also the spectral dependence of photoconductivity. And by this way, we can regulate the properties of these materials depending on the light. And finally, we developed the sensors with very high sensitivity and very high selectivity towards oxidizing molecules like nitrogen dioxide and ozone, which are very important environmental gases and also some biomarkers. And these sensors can work at room temperature without any thermal heating under visible light activation. And we use usually the green light, which has the maximum intensity. And this is very important that such sensors can work not only in laboratory conditions in dry air, but also in real conditions in humid atmosphere. And this fact is really very important for the practice. Next slide, please. As a summary, I would like to say that during our very, very fruitful cooperation, we have published 9 articles submitted from China's side and 6 articles submitted from Russian side. Most of these articles are in the Q1 category, and among them we have 6 joint publications and 4 highly cited articles. Also, we have now 2 Chinese patents and 2 Russian patents. Next slide, please. And I'm very glad to say that we continue our collaboration in the frame of new project, which is devoted to the development of 2-dimensional materials for gas sensing. And I'm sure that this project allows us to continue our joint fundamental studies in the field of the gas sensing. Also, we can create new sensing materials and find some new activation methods for the next generation of gas sensors. And of course, this will very good possibility to continue our exchange, our scientific exchange, to elaborate new ideas and to elaborate new knowledge. Next slide, please. And finally, I would like to thank both the funds for the support, and here you can see the list of our projects. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Now let's move on to the third presentation. So welcome Professor Abzerov Mustafa and Professor Wang Cheng.
Thanks. Good afternoon and good morning, Moscow. For fluid structure interaction under impulse loading, I'm Qing Wang from Beijing Institute of Technology from China. The partner is master professor from Russia. Firstly, I introduce background. Fluid structure interaction problems are nonlinear strong coupling problems, including explosion in container at confined space and penetration at damage of structure. In such complex fluid structure interaction problems, they involve lot deformation or even damage of multi-material with high temperature, high speed, high pressure, and high density cell. There are several scientific challenges. The first is the dynamic constitutive relationship and damage evolution. And the second, high relative competition for shock and explored lead. And the high density cell and pressure multi-medium fluids and the 2V multimedia fluid structure interaction. Like these figures, we simulate the fluid structure interaction. Through 3 years cooperation, we propose second-order accuracy ALU modification of kernel scheme for both CFD and CSP on packed stencil. And given a exact remain solved for fluid structure interaction interface tracking. Meanwhile, we use multi-mass, 3 types mass to deal with these problems. The main advantage of this technology, the users takes care only about the first type's masses. This illustrates 3 types of mass. The first type is STL surface. The second type is non-moving textual mass, and the third type is local ALE mass for each triangular STL surface. Based on this algorithm, we developed the code to simulate some problems such as explosions. The case 1 is TNT explosion in steel container with water or air. This is the container, here is explosive, this is the air or water. First, this is TNT explosion in air. We simulate from the figures we can explore view, propagate, and then reflect from both. Meanwhile, we can observe a container deformation. The second case is ice projectile impact plate target. From these figures, we can observe ice projectile and target deformation. The third case is natural gas explosion in complex structures. This is a very complex problems because it is very serious exploration phenomenon in China and world countries. This figure illustrates explosion we propagate, and this figure is explosion view. We can simulate and then provide some basis for rescue. This slide is given by Professor Master. Professor.
Mustafa.
I'm sorry, perhaps you have been mute. Please turn on your microphone.
Вас не слышно. Да, вас не слышно.
Now слышно?
Да, слышно.
Our results were published in Somaticals, and now I'd like to say only about conclusions. So within the framework of this project, a new technology for solving a fluid structure interaction problem has been developed. This technology allows for accurate tracking of contact surfaces in fixed Euler coordinates. And with this technology, the user only needs surface meshes in the form. Sorry. Sorry. With this technology, once more. With this technology, the user needs only surface meshes in the form of STL files. And this technology seems to be very promising for the development of coders based on it for solving FSI problems. And we look forward to further cooperation in the development of joint 3D coders for solving fluid structure interaction problems based on this technology. And we hope that it would be better than, for example, LSDyna or ILE3D or some others, because with using this technology, the main advantage is that it's possible to control the contact surface in non-moving Euler mesh. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great presentations. Thank you very much. The coming up next is the last session today. in the field of chemistry, material sciences, and mathematics. Let's welcome the first speakers, Professor Bichir Mirza and Professor Wang Yaojin.
Dear colleagues, our project was devoted to the research of magnetoelectric magnetic field sensor for application in medicine. Next slide. At present, weak magnetic field in the range of 10 femtotesla and 10 picotesla associated with the work of the heart and human brain activity are measured using highly sensitive magnetic field sensors, such as squids and optically pumped atomic magnetometers, which have large weight and dimensions and are difficult to operate. Therefore, replacing such complex devices by mobile microelectronic magnetoelectric sensor with comparable sensitivity is an urgent problem. Next slide. In this project, together with our Chinese colleagues, we solved two tasks, theoretical and experimental. In theory, it was necessary to obtain ratios for the mean voltage coefficients of the selected materials, which mainly determine the magnetic sensitivity of the sensors. In experimental terms, it was necessary to design a magnetoelectric sensor with a sensitivity of 1/10 picotesla, taking into account the peculiarities of application in medicine. I will focus on the theoretical part of the project, while my colleague, Professor Yaojin Wang, will talk about the developed sensor. As for the ME effect, the composite should be considered consisting of three subsystems: piezoelectric, mechanical, and magnetic. Usually, when measuring the ME effect under the influence of external magnetic field, the ME voltage coefficient is determined, which is equal to the ratio of the induced electric field to the external alternating magnetic field. The magnitude of these coefficients mainly determines the magnetic sensitivity of the sensor. Next slide. We were interested in the properties of the ME composites in two frequency domains that are important for the medicine, in a low frequency range and in the field of electromechanical resonance. In the low frequency range, we performed the calculation by averaging method, which consisted of two stages. At the first stage, the ME composite was considered as a structure consisting of piezoelectric and magnetostrictive phases interacted with each other. At the second stage, the two-layer structure was considered as homogeneous material with effective parameters, with help of which the ME coefficients were found using the boundary conditions. Next slide. Since mechanical oscillations participate in inducing the ME effect, it is obvious that the magnitude of the effect should increase sharply as the electromechanical resonance range. Consider, for example, the calculation of ME voltage coefficient for the longitudinal mode of electromechanical resonance. The theoretical model consists of equations of medial motion, material equations, and boundary conditions. For simplicity, consider the calculation of the ME voltage coefficient for a thin rectangular two-layer plate. Taking into account the boundary conditions and open circuit condition allows us to find the expression for the longitudinal and transverse ME voltage coefficients. Calculation indicates that the magnitude of the coefficients is mainly determined by the product of Pearson modules. Therefore, the transverse coefficient considerably exceeds the longitudinal one. Taking into account the positive result obtained during the implementation of the project, we continue to cooperate with our Chinese colleagues, publish joint papers, and hope to part in the next joint Russian-Chinese competition. Next slide for.
Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm Yao Jin Wang. We have cooperation with Professor Bichuni for almost 10 years. When I was a postdoc in USA, we began this project. And after I returned back to China, we continue this project. We have more than 5 papers together. And here, I would like to select 2 main progress. The first one is the ultra-sensitive flexible magnetoelectric sensor. As we know that in previous study, what the ME sensor are rigidity, they are ceramic rigidity. So here, we use a very interesting substrate, mica, which is like a 2D material. So we deposit the PZT film on the mica and peel off the structure at the bottom. Then we make a flexible sensor. From these results, we can see that at a low frequency, the sensitivity is about 2.2 micronanometer, and the resonance we can get 0.1 or 0.2 nanometer. Compared with the previous results, we can see the ME coefficient of our flexible sensor is highest. And most interesting, we can get 0.2 micronanometer sensitivity. But in the previous report, they didn't match this property because the sensitivity for their sensor probably very weak. This progress was published in APL Material, which was featured by the editor-in-chief and highlighted by AIP. Next slide, please. The second progress is on the ME module for biomechanical energy harvesting. As we know that there are a lot of energy around humans, such as the solar energy and the thermal energy. But the most interesting, there's plenty of biomechanical energy during our running and walking. So Professor Bichuni and I designed this structure. It contains ME composites, and during the human moving, the magnets will change the magnetic field. So we can get a power around 14 microwatt. So this power probably can be used for the self-powered electronics in the future. You see, this is my student. He hold this ME device. It's very small. When he walking at a low speed, we can get a 40 around 10. And if you are walking high speed, we can get a high output voltage. So this power can light more than 7 LED lights, and you also can charge the lithium battery. Next slide, please. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Next slide. No. Yeah. We have a lot of email communication, but we also have some symposium. Very luckily, at the beginning of the 2020, we have an on-site workshop on magnetoelectric material and device in China. Professor Bichuni and Professor Takeronto faced our group. And in April 2021, we have a lot of symposium because of the pandemic. Professor Bichuni didn't face our lab, but he gave us a very interesting talk online. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very impressive presentations. Now, let's move to the second presentation. Welcome, Professor Fatih Vladimir and Professor Xin Wei.
My name is Xing Wei from Changchun Institute of Applied Chemistry, Chinese Academy of Sciences. And this is my great honor to share the fruits achieved in the recent years with my Russia partner, dear Professor Vladimir Vatiev, under the support of NSFC and RFBR. Our research has focused on the fuel cells, which is able to convert the chemical energy of the fuel into electric energy directly without Carnot cycle. It is a zero emission technique with very high efficiency. Now, fuel cells are regarded widely as the most promising power generation techniques for carbon neutralization in the future. However, the wide application of fuel cells are still restricted by some aspects. In the view of the catalyst, the following 2 points stand out obviously. First, the cost of the precious metals catalyst is too higher to realize the commercialization. Secondly, the platinum and other precious metals resources are too limited to support the larger fuel cell application. This is why both of China and Russia teams work together to select the goal issue. After the project is granted, we have been developing a highly efficiency fuel cells catalyst with lower platinum loading and the membrane electrode assembly is called as MEA, and the fuel cells permanence with the catalyst. Next, I will briefly introduce some progress in the cooperations of Chinese and Russian teams has achieved in anode and cathode composite catalyst for fuel cells. Here, I will start with interesting work in which we developed a uniform CU chain-like gold core and palladium cell electrocatalyst for formate acid anode oxidation. I saw in the team the gold core is successfully covered by the palladium cell with the particle size homogeneously dispersed, like this. XPS results confirms that the bonding energy of the 3-dimension signals are negatively shifted due to the gold introductions. This is because that the gold introduced lattice strength on the palladium and leads to increase the bonding between palladium and the intermediate, resulting in the prepared catalyst show better performance. The mass special activities is about 9 times than that of the commercial palladium catalyst. The enhanced catalyst performance is probably due to the balance between the increase of palladium lattice and the surface electric density. Like shown in this picture. And for low platinum loading cathode catalyst, we have prepared reduced graphite oxide that's called RGO and use it as support. The platinum nanoparticles were deposited on these materials and also on the vacuum 17-2 carbon black, respectively. The structure and the electrochemical property of the obtained catalyst were investigated in electrochemical 3-electrode cell and in PEMFC, that is called proton exchange membrane fuel cells. Among the RGO-based catalysts, the highest active surface areas, so the ECSA, were obtained for the oxided or RGO-supported catalyst. And this can see the addition of the RGO modified by ozone-based catalyst to the Wacom 72 based catalyst shows us to increase the PEM fuel cells performance obviously. It is well known that simply reducing the platinum loading in the fuel cells will produce the mass transfer resistance. It is interesting that we develop a new low platinum loading catalyst with largely increased platinum dispersions and result in decreasing mass transfer resistance. However, the electro effect generated by the interactions between them can improve the activity of the catalyst. The high resolution TEM images show that the platinum cluster prepared by this route has a small particle size and are uniformly dispersed on the support. And the electroactive areas show that the ESA is nearly 4 times than that of the commercial. Furthermore, the superiorities of the catalyst is verified by the low loading fuel cells test. The local mass transfer resistance in the hydrogen air fuel cells is significantly reduced in the high current domain. That is it. And thus led to the promotions with even low locking in the maximum current density. And as a conclusion, so far, the cooperation's project resulted in the following fruits. CIAC has systematically studied the high efficiency and low cost catalyst used in fuel cell cathodes and anodes, where Kirchanov Institute studied the GFEI modifications and microscopy simulation of the fuel cells process, and the MEA prepared with plasma techniques. Those collaborations, we have developed 4 kinds of fuel cells catalysts for the anode and cathode, and published some papers including this. And in addition, we are planning a China and Russia conference on fuel cells. Thank you for attention. This is my partner, Professor Fatiev, and he was working in our institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you for Professor Xing's wonderful presentation. Now let's move on to the third presentation. Welcome, Professor Pyatakov Alexander and Professor Ren Wei.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Please.
So, thank you for the opportunity to present our work with Professor Zhen. And please, the next slide. The main idea of our project is in interfaces. In interfaces can be a special phase of the material that have the properties different from the bulk material. For example, magnetic domain wall, that is the interface between two homogeneously magnetized domains, locally reduce the symmetry of the material and can be electrically polarized. In this way, it can be controlled by electrodes. Another example is two-dimensional material. For example, van der Waals magnet can be both magnetic materials and ferroelectric ones, and they are interface as a whole. So it can be kind of multiferroics on interface, multiferricity on interfaces, both in domain walls and in 2D materials. Next slide, please. Here we can see, on the left, we can see the magneto-optical image of domain structure, and the black area is a tip electrode, an electrode from the atomic force microscopy tip in contact mode. When the voltage is applied to the tip electrode, the domain walls are displaced from the equilibrium position. And on the right side, we can see even more pronounced effect, the nucleation, the generation of new domains by electric field. When you apply negative voltage, it appears on the left on the tip. When you apply positive voltage, it appears on the right of the tip. Next slide, please. Yeah, we can see here the transformation by electric voltage here on the left. And next slide, please. Yeah, and this is the generation of bubble domain lattice. So when you apply the series of voltage pulses, you generate multiple domains, and they order in some kind of lattice, bubble domain lattice, and you can adjust it with external magnetic field. So we can see here that the domain walls are kind of interfaces, kind of device in the spirit of famous phrase of Nobel laureate Herbert Kroemer. And now I would like to ask Professor Zhen to continue.
Thank you, Alex. Can I share my screen? Please stop your, yeah, okay. My name is Wei Ren from Shanghai University. I'm going to present the following part. We have found that ferroelectricity and anti-ferromagnetism in bilayer VS2 are coupled together by ferro valley to achieve electrically controlled magnetism. One can design switching of 4 different ferroelectric antiferromagnetic configurations, which provide a new possibility for realizing multi-state storage. From our further investigation, this is not a special case only for bilayer VS2, but is quite universal in other bilayer materials as well. We performed a detailed theoretical analysis of structural, electronic, and magnetic properties of the monolayer ferromagnetic semiconductor, CGT. The moderate cleavage energy suggests that it can be exfoliated from bulk or multi-layer systems. The ground state is a ferromagnetic, having 3 μb per chromium atom with an in-plane polarization, spin polarization. And the calculated band gaps are reported by using different functionals. In addition, string engineering and the electrical field might be applied to control electronic and magnetic behaviors of such CGT monolayer. This year, we predicted some fundamental properties of a polar perovskite KTO when approaching 2D regime. If atomic layer number is less than 14, the even layer system are semiconductors, while odd layer systems are half metal, except for a unique KT205 as a semiconductor due to the Pierce distortion. The band gaps of even layer systems gradually decrease as the thickness increases. The odd layer systems are spin polarized metallic. Beyond 14 layers, even layer systems show ferromagnetic surface states, while ferromagnetism disappear in odd layer systems. Also in this year, we predicted a controllable conductivity with possibly high mobility at the interface of BTO-CTO superlattice, thanks to spontaneous polarization of a ferroelectric barium titanate. This superlattice undergoes an electronic reconstruction, and there exists there coexist N-type and P-type conductivities in our model system. Using first principles, we found that interfacial conductivity states originate from cadmium 5s and oxygen 2p orbitals with low effective mass and non-degenerate dispersion. It makes it feasible to study transport phenomena, including the realization of fractional quantum Hall effects. Here's the conclusion of our presentation. Last, I would like to show some photos from our productive collaboration during the last 3 years. In January 2019, I have invited Professor Alexander Pyatakov and Nikita Terorganesian to visit our campus in Shanghai University. In December 2020, we have organized together an international conference on magnetoelectric multiferrics and perovskite materials. Before the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, both sides from China and Russia started off a new joint grant under the support of NSFC and RFBR, a trilateral project by including our Indian collaborator from BRICS countries. We have already held successful meetings in Shanghai and Bangalore, and we hope our planned next visit in Moscow will become possible soon after the pandemic is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for excellent presentation. Next, also the last presentation today is from Professor Valery Ruslan and Professor Zheng Yufeng. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction. And it's a great pleasure to present the results of our project with Professor Zheng. Okay, dealing with biomaterials. And really, Professor Zheng is from Peking University and leading expert in biomaterials. So we are expert in nanostructural materials using new approach we call severe plastic deformation. And due to this collaboration, we did several interesting works. One, we started our collaboration more than 10 years ago. And during this period, we really, for us, this is third project. And many young scientists also involved in these studies, and biomaterials, metallic biomaterials is very high topic because for human body and for many cases, we need to have new medical implants, new medical devices, and biomaterials. So this is basis to produce such type of materials. From other hand, there is strong requirements to have for biomaterials. First of all, they must have special strength, fatigue endurance, bioproperties, and low elastic moduli. So it's very difficult to select good materials, and especially important to develop new kind of materials. And in our studies, we showed the nanostructure is this very important and progressive approach to produce new properties in metallic materials and to use them as for medical applications. Okay, principle severe plastic deformation. You can see from this figure a piece of materials in bottom up may be subjected to be called severe plastic deformation. This is special metal forming procedure, and to produce very small grain size in 100 or 1,000 times less than initial, and due to this we can introduce very often new and novel properties. The principle of nanostructure was published in about 20 years ago in Progress Material Science, and you see this citation of this article, more than 5,000, demonstrated how popular, how broad this topic presently, and new kind of equipment was developed for processing different metallic materials for their nanostructure. And very interesting, just recently studied application of these nanomaterials. For example, for dental application, where possible to produce nano implant with more advanced design and more advanced functionality for dental application, and now for another application, and already several very efficient surgeries was done in Czech Republic and now in China also. So this is moving to new direction of for application in commercialization. This is nano-titanium. Another example of another metallic material, and Professor Zhenko will continue this presentation.
Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. I will continue to present our collaboration research work. So as mentioned by Professor Waliev, we had collaborated in the past 10 years. And actually we fabricate nanostructured metal alloys, including titanium alloy and nitinol, the nickel titanium simple memory alloys, and also magnesium-based alloy. And currently we are ongoing project is about the zinc-based metal and alloys. So next slide, please. Excuse me. So as mentioned by Professor Waliev, you can find that after the nanocrystalline for the pure titanium, you can find that the ECAP titanium, it's the nanocrystalline pure titanium. So you can find that it has a better protein adsorption properties. And if we do the animal test, next slide, please. If we implant the nanocrystalline pure titanium into the bone of the beat dog, you can find that in the initial 4 weeks, there's a very quick new bone forming ability. So you can find that for the ECAP titanium group, it has a better new bone, has a very high amount of new bone being formed around the implant. It's quite crucial for the implant to make it be more stable in biomechanics. So it's quite important for the dental application. So we just did this animal test, and it is quite important for the medical device. Because we don't change the materials, we don't change the chemical property, the chemical composition, but with this severe plastic deformation technique, we can make the mechanical properties much better and even has better biocompatibility. So next slide. Later on, we also fabricated nanocrystalline titanium nickel chip memory alloys. It shows better mechanical properties. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can also find that after implant into the bone, it has a better new bone forming ability in comparison to that the commercial micro structured counterpart. Next slide. So we also use this technique to fabricate the ultraline grain biodegradable magnesium alloys. And in comparison to the previous study, here we use the high pressure torsion technique. And you can find that the crystalline, the grain size has been decreased significantly by this technique. Next slide. And it can break the secondary phase into pieces. And this it will be improve the mechanical properties. On the one hand, it can enhance the strength. On the other hand, it can have a very good ductility for the sample. Next slide. So after implant into the body, you can find that for the, in comparison to that of the microstructured alloy, it has a very uniform degradation in vivo. Next slide. So you can also find it can decrease the degradation rate from the figure B. Next slide. Yes, so I think in the future, in the coming 2 years, we will study the zinc-based biodegradable metals. We also use the severe plastic deformation to fabricate the nanostructured zinc-based alloys, and we would like to have more products. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. It's very interesting. Also, the perfect ending of today's presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, here we are at the stage of closing remarks. First, please welcome Professor Zhou Liyao to give us closing remarks on behalf of the National Natural Science Foundation of China. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang. And first of all, I would like to thank all the participants who are still with us today till the very end of the forum. And in particular, I would like to give my sincere appreciations to the presenters, I think roughly 30, somewhere around 30, who share with us not only their scientific achievement through their joint research with their Russian counterparts, but also something beyond that, which is their cultural exchange when they had their research activity. Chinese students learning Russian songs, while their Russian partners learn how to play Chinese chess. So that is very interesting, which I think that is the joint research and collaboration are all about. And I was very impressed by those presenters who, in their presentations, they gave emphasis on complementary mode they have adopted in their joint research with their Russian partners. And some of them even share with their perspective for the future collaboration. For instance, there is a lady from the University in Moscow suggests that they would like to establish a new research center for science excellence, so that the research will be going even further. So that is very inspiring through this kind of forum, and we know quite a lot about what researchers want to do in the coming years. And I know that as some other participants said in their presentations, that the outbreak of pandemic in fact stopped us from being seeing each other in person. But I'm very glad to see that the collaboration is still going on via different means. In fact, virtual meeting is a wonderful approach to that. Of course, it will be stopped, and sometime perhaps it will impact with a rather negative impact, because that will lower the pace of collaboration. But the collaboration is still going on, and I hope that this kind of state will be right there and will be going on as forever. And I noticed that the research contents include not only the very fundamental things, for instance, physics and chemistry, but in many ways, the participants have presented us with some application background research. For instance, the knowledge can be used for the research on the clinical or translational medical research, which is of much significance for the people's well-being and for people's health in the future. So from the presentations that I've heard today, make me very confident that the collaboration between Russia side and the Chinese side will do much better than before. If the science founders like RFBI and NSFC can invest more into the research area, ranging from physics to life sciences and even to the info communications, so that I think we should be confident for the outcomes of the future research activity by the Russian scientists and the Chinese partners. And by taking this opportunity, I would like to thank Dr. Alexander Tony Visky as the co-chairman for the forum today, and you did a very good job. And hoping that someday we could see each other in person, either in Moscow or Beijing as well. So again, thank you so much for participating in the forum today, and have a good day. Have a good day to our Russian colleagues, and have a good evening to our Chinese colleagues. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Zhou, for your warm closing remarks. So now, may I ask Professor Alexander Tonivisky to give closing remarks on behalf of the Russia Foundation for Basic Research. Please, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. I completely agree with you, dear Professor Liang Zhu, that it will be really interesting, very useful day, and it's very difficult for us now really estimate the results which we hear today. But we really very impressive of all the presentation, all the data, papers, plus, of course, serious cooperation between groups and people. And I hope we in the right direction, and we going to hard to develop all this possibility for establish maybe new programs, new labs, new maybe topics of our cooperation. And, but nevertheless, it's necessary for me to thank all participants, especially all lectures today, plus, of course, the people who help us today to organize from both sides our meeting with technicians and other people who organized this very interesting meeting. Plus, tomorrow, probably we have chance to see our future. We have our young scientist who is going to prepare their stories, and we try to compare and to see what is a new direction, maybe new ideas, and maybe new contacts between our groups, institutes, and maybe agencies. First of all, again, thank you very much for today, and hope we have tomorrow extremely interesting day, and we have maybe chance to discuss some direction and result of our very useful and fruitful meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, thank you very much for your participation and great contribution for the scientific forum. Now, I'm declaring the closing of today's forum. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.